Thanks very much, Ian. Yeah, it's an honour to come along here today to speak to you, and probably a little bit different from generally talking to rugby players just before they're going out to do battle on a rugby pitch. It's quite ironic, you know, looking at the Team New Zealand. I, like every Kiwi this morning, sat in our cafe at Bay Engineers where I currently work, and was like everyone else, was barracking for Team New Zealand. And obviously the disappointment was there, but the commitment of Team New Zealand was certainly, it has to be admired. And you know, just my expectations as a coach and what I expect from my players is every time they go out and play for me, I expect them to give me 200%. And about 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm a real fan of tennis and Roger Federer, and I use this example because it means a lot to me from a coach's perspective. And 5 years ago I saw the best game of tennis I'd ever seen. It was Nadal versus Federer in the final at Wimbledon, which is obviously the big tournament of the year in terms of Grand Prix tennis. And in this particular game, and with Federer has already won 6 or 7 titles at Wimbledon, it was won by Nadal, and it was the greatest game of tennis I'd ever seen in terms of their skill sets. Unbelievable tennis. And the sad thing about that particular game, there had to be a loser. And I always remember visibly looking at the interview afterwards at Roger Federer, visibly cried his eyes out and not winning the tournament that he so desperately wanted to win, and won by Nadal. 2 weeks after that, I read in the paper, you know, a little story about Roger Federer, but it had a quote in there, and it meant everything to me because it epitomises what I expect from my players. And I reflect back on Team New Zealand today, you know, losing obviously to Oracle and what was certainly a well-contested series of races. And it said last week Nadal won the greatest game of tennis, but Federer gained in defeat. He showed us that losing, although painful, is not necessarily failure. How can it be when you've given it all you have? And you can look back at Oracle today, and in that one against Team New Zealand. Team New Zealand gave it everything. And you do 2 great yachts in a fierce battle to win the America's Cup, and we just on the day weren't good enough. And it's like my team. We may have won 11 World Series out of 14 World Series champs, but we didn't win every game of every tournament. We went pretty close, but we didn't win every tournament. We won 2 tournaments out of the World Series because generally there are 9 tournaments. South Africa won 3, Fiji won a couple, and I think Samoa may have won 1. But consistently we were always there or thereabouts. Because in a World 7 Series tournaments now, 8 or 9 teams could win any tournament. It's not about New Zealand, Fiji, as it used to always be. Then all of a sudden South Africa came along, and in Samoa, any of the Pacific Island teams are always a real threat. But today, as I said, you know, when you lose, it's not necessarily failure. All I expect from my players to go out and give it your very, very best, and that's the philosophy that I certainly use, and that's what I saw and I felt was demonstrated out on that course today with those 2 yachts. A lot of people probably don't realise that I have obviously a coaching role with the All Black Sevens team. I've been now coaching, I'm into my 20th year, which is certainly a long, long time, and I also work for a company called Bay Engineers Supplies. Up until 4 months ago, I was the general manager of Bay Engineers. I've worked there now 29, 30 years. And I looked after 130 staff and 11 branches in the North Island. And when a lot of people ask me, you know, you're still coaching, what keeps you going? I believe I have that balance between work and sport, which to me is very, very important. Otherwise I'd be rugbyed out if I solely did rugby. And obviously I went up to the owner of the company, the managing director, Warwick Talbot, only about 3 months ago, and I said to Warwick, I can't justify my role now as a general manager because the rugby union have come to me and they want 200 days a year out of me now, moving through to 2016, of course, because our sport now being admitted to the Olympics. And Warwick said, well, are you handing your notice? And I said, no. I said, well, basically year work because I don't believe I can justify my role and give it the amount of time, because you must understand that being obviously a general manager requires lots and lots of responsibility, and I just felt I couldn't justify that role at that time. And he's looked at me and he said, well, hang on, what if I make you the strategic sales director? And whatever that means, so that's my new role with Bay Engineers. But in saying that, the value for the company that I work for is not sitting in my office, it's actually getting out on the coalface and mixing with the customers, and that's what I do, because I can open doors that a lot of my sales reps can't open, and we've got certainly some big contracts with our company, and it's a privately owned company, and we've done very well, and the culture we have in the company is exactly what I have within the culture within my All Black Sevens team, and I'll talk to you a little bit later about the qualities that create that culture, which has certainly been second to none, certainly from my side over a long period of time. One of the main ingredients, and I probably got this from one of my mentors, and a guy by the name of Eric Rush, who's obviously, if you've never heard Eric Rush speak, he's a former All Black and a great Sevens player. For 13 years he was the captain of my side, and he retired at the age of 39. 39, unbelievable. A guy at that age was still winning the fitness tests. And he said, but because he's a very funny guy and he's a great speaker, he always said to me, Titch, when you get up and speak anywhere, wherever you go, you must have a bit of humour, which is that massive ingredient we should have in our workplace. Humour and fun, and we have it in our team, I can assure you. And he said, you've always got to have a couple of jokes to get your speech going. So I've come up with one that I think is pretty good, but I always apologise first, in case I offend anyone, because there's certainly no intent. And ladies, they're not too bad, they're pretty good. And then I'll talk to you briefly about the qualities that create this culture, with certainly what's been successful around my All Black Sevens team. A man was leaving a cafe one morning for his morning coffee when he noticed this most unusual funeral procession approaching the nearby cemetery. A long black hearse was followed by a second black hearse, which was following about 50 feet behind. Behind the second hearse was a solitary man walking a pit bull on a leash. Behind him was a queue of 200 men walking in single file. The man couldn't stand the curiosity. He respectfully approached the man walking the dog. He said, I've never seen a funeral like this, with so many of you walking in single file. Whose funeral is it? He said, the first hearse is for my wife. He said, what happened to her? He said, my dog attacked and killed her. He inquired a bit further. He said, well, whose is the second hearse? He said, my mother-in-law. She's trying to help my wife when the dog turned on her. A thoughtful moment of silence passed between the two men. Can I borrow the dog? No, join the bloody queue. So guys. Sorry, ladies, that was yeah. On winning our 11th World Series, I received an email from the Canterbury ITM Cup team, and I come from the Bay of Plenty, and when you're a coach, and you can imagine the amount of pressure that you're under, particularly when you're coaching any New Zealand All Black Sevens team, the All Blacks, and you can imagine the amount of pressure that someone like Graham Henry's was under, particularly when, go back a number of years, when we lost that World Cup and went on to win the following World Cup, and they won that 8-7 in a particularly close game. And it's like the yachting today, where it's so close, and I have to feel a lot, because I sit back as a coach, and basically to me Dean Barker was coach of that boat that we're on today. And I feel for him, and I also feel for his family and his wife, because that's what we deal with all the time, the amount of pressure when we lose. I deal with more media when I lose than when I win, and that's a fact of life. We may lose a tournament, right, the amount of calls and radio sport calls, because that's what drives talkback. It's amazing. And there's a lot of critics out there, and the amount of pressure and the expectations of you having to win are huge. When I started this coaching role in 1994, I had a heap of hair, I can assure you, and I've certainly disappeared over the last few years. So when I received this email and this letter of congratulations after winning our 11th World Series, it epitomised everything about my team, because a lot of people don't realise how hard my guys have to work to win a tournament, being so competitive as it is now. And in this particular email, I'm going to read it to you because it meant a lot to me, and I read it to my team, and it's really pleasing when you get these positive sort of emails, because this was quite special. And it said, "Congratulations, your management, team and players optimise the best of being a Kiwi. A get on with the job attitude, lifting to the challenges even when the challenges get greater, and succeeding with a humble smile on our face." And that was an awesome, obviously, email to receive, because I can assure you, the challenges, they do get greater. And when you work, and you work so hard as we have to within our environment, with our team, it is really, really pleasing. And I can assure you, after the last game of whatever tournament I'm involved in, I, like you tonight, love to get down in the lounge and sit down and have a wine, because up until then, the amount of stress that's involved with coaching the national side is huge. People think because we go to all these exotic countries, and we go to 9 different countries, Hong Kong, Japan, London, Scotland, Dubai, South Africa, we've got Australia coming up, we've got the Wellington Sevens. There's just a massive amount of tournaments that we go to. And Russia last year to take part in a Rugby World Cup, which we were lucky to win. And it goes on. I've even been to Jerusalem. We played in a tournament a number of years ago in Jerusalem, of all places. And I said, why a tournament in Jerusalem? And it was because there's lots of Fijians as part of the peacekeeping that live in Jerusalem. And we flew Air Tel Aviv, mate, and you can imagine I was just really, I didn't know what to expect getting on one of these airplanes that number of years ago. But when you're obviously involved in a sport that you love, you'll travel and fly anywhere to be part of it. But I got often asked many times, why has the Sevens team been very, very successful? And I put it down to 4 qualities. And the first and foremost is the team quality of together everyone achieves more. I'm never self-reliant on the players with the X factors to win me tournaments. I could lose my very best player in the very first minute of a tournament, my second best player, my 3 players through injury. I have a favourite saying, whoever plays will do the job. And I've got to actually display that confidence in the guys that come in off the bench, that they'll get out and do the job for me. The second quality is unity. Unity is family. And when I talk about family, I'll let you bring up you. Yeah, I'll just hold off for a minute, guys. I'll just let you say you're not distracted. When I talk about unity, my guys, believe it or not, are the fittest rugby players in New Zealand. And what drives them, my trainings are harder than any game that they'll ever play. But believe it or not, by smashing them at trainings and getting the best out of them, I'm not only challenging them physically, but I'm really challenging them mentally, and that actually unifies them. And it gives them that real competitive edge. The third quality is passion. Being proud of whom you represent and what the jersey means to my players. And I can assure you it means everything. In a business and a working sense, what that polo shirt means to you. Because with passion should come enjoyment. The fourth quality is team discipline. I break that into 2 areas. You've got to have a work ethic. You've got to be self-motivated, and you've got to train at an intensity so when you come into our assemblies and camps that you will pass all the fitness tests, and we will leave these shores with the fittest rugby team in the following tournament that we're looking to attend. So that to me is huge. The other part of the discipline is built around nutrition. Nutrition wins me tournaments. What you eat is what you are. And I'm really ruthless around nutrition because my players can never eat anything fried. Nothing fried whatsoever. Building into a tournament, it's the red meats up until Wednesday. From then on, it's the pastas, all the veggies, steamed veggies, salads, breads, fruits, and all that chicken and fish. That's what it is. So when we get that right, what it gives me is consistency in performance. If I know all my players are eating the right types of foods, they've got the right fuel, because as I said, my trainings are harder than any game they'll ever play, so the games, in a sense, should be easier. But when it comes to those finals that you need to win, the games are very, very competitive. So if you get those 4 qualities, the team, the unity, the passion and the discipline right, that certainly creates a culture, and certainly a successful one to me, which is second to none, and which certainly worked for us over the years. What do I look at when I'm going out to look for players? What are the qualities that when I'm looking for players that are close in ability? I select on 2 qualities, and you can look and use this in a working sense. Remembering someone can come into your job at any day when you're looking to employ anyone, because when we send an advert out, when you're advertising for someone, you might get 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, who knows, applicants that are looking to apply for that role. And always what you ask for is a CV. And someone comes in with an outstanding CV, but he may not be the person that you want for your respective position that you need. What do I look for? The qualities are based around character and coachability. If I've got 2 players neck and neck for a position on my side, I'll always select the player that's going to add and give me more to my team. Because if they've got character and you've taken an instant liking to them, they're also very, very coachable. And I find that to be very, very good in the sense that those guys with the character generally have the mental toughness to battle through the trainings as hard as they have to, and have all those other qualities based around having that work ethic. So character and coachability, to me, are very, very important ingredients when looking to select teams, whether it be in a business sense or in the sporting sense as well. An area that I've also found that's worked for me over the years, I work with a lot of Pacific Islanders, a lot of Polynesians. And how do I get the best out of a Jonah Lomu? How do I get the best out of a Christian Cullen or any type of player? But generally, when I've worked with a lot of these Pacific Islanders that have come into my team so young, they can make my team as a 17-year-old. Liam Messam, one of the current All Blacks, was in my team as a 17-year-old. Tanarau Latimer was in as a 17-year-old. Caleb Ralph, who was an All Black, was in there as a 17-year-old. These guys so young have to make lifestyle changes. In other words, adapt to all the disciplines that are required as a coach that I set around these standards. They have to adjust coming from an amateur era to the professional era. And when I look at this and how do I get the best out of someone like Jonah, all of a sudden thrust in front of him is to make all these nutritional changes. All of a sudden he's got to have the work ethic that he may not have had, because a lot of young people these days make all these different teams on their skill sets alone, on their natural talent. And a lot of them in the past, when you think about it, when they've made every school team going through the years, they've never been challenged in terms of the guys that are in that professional era. So when they leave school, all of a sudden they're up against these professionals and they struggle and they really, really battle. So with someone like Jonah, and what I've done over the years is I go and build relationships with their mum and dads. And when you build those relationships, what you are then, you're building trust. And when you build trust with these kids, with all this talent, those kids will do anything for you. And those, to me, are also key ingredients in which you need to have as a coach. Because the secret to being a good coach and a good manager is not what we know technically or tactically. It's always about your people skills. And if they like you, they will play for you, or they will work for you. If they don't like you, they won't want to work for you or want to play for you. And that's a real key for me. Your ability to communicate and get on with your players. And I've found that to be a real key. Perhaps it's not so much a secret, but a real key ingredient to getting on with your staff. I talk about leadership a little bit. I'm not going to go on for too much longer. When I talk about leadership, and Eric Rush, I had a fantastic leader for 13 years. When you've got someone that leads from the front, I can tell you right now, you'll have an outstanding team. It's very, very important when you're looking to place someone with a leadership role within your team. And I've certainly done that over a number of years, where I've had some wonderful captains, not only Eric Rush, Carl Tanana, Liam Messam, Tafai Aosa, and I've got a magnificent captain now, and a guy by the name of GJ Forbes, who's currently 30, that's gone away and won me a gold medal, won me a World Cup, and won me a number of World Series. So the leadership aspect is very, very important. As I said before, with one of Rush's also traits was also being very, very funny, and also that created a lot of humour and a lot of fun within our team. I'm very traditional as a coach. When I talk about tradition, I talk about I never go away, I never work away from things that have worked for me. In other words, I don't compromise as a coach. I'm ruthless at training. I have a lot of systems that are perhaps they're not so much outdated, but they work for me, so I won't work away from them. But in terms of innovation, I'm always looking to move ahead with the times and only inject what I need to out of those new initiatives that may come our way. So that to me is important. And I do lots and lots of research overseas in different sports, AFL in some cases. I've been there and spent some time in Melbourne and looked at what they do, because that's similar to our game in terms of their conditioning levels, which is really important. I may go to rugby league and look at what they do defensively, because they can add to our game, and also go to the game of touch rugby, which is probably our nearest cousin or relation to what we have in the game of sevens. Most memorable times coaching the All Black Sevens team, in the time I've been coaching them, there's nothing better than going to a Com Games and being successful and winning a gold medal, listening to the national anthem, the raising of the flag, and seeing your player being presented with a gold medal. And that to me is just something that I'll never forget. And I've been lucky enough to be involved in 4 different occasions. Well, I haven't got a lot more else to add, except I'm going to probably finish with a couple of quotes which mean a lot to me. And I look for simplicity as a coach. Nothing ever too complex. I'm pretty straight up, and as I said, pretty traditional. The 6 most important words in life is I admit I made a mistake, which is based around humility and being humble, because that to me is a vital quality. We're always quick to blame someone or something. In actual fact, when you take a brunt of the blame, you get a lot of kudos for that. The 5 most important words is you did a great job, which is empathy. When you pat someone on the back and you said you've done something well or you've done a great job, that actually means a lot to that person. Generally, when you shoulder tap someone, it's always when they've done something wrong. The 4 most important words is what is your opinion, which is coaching. The most important people in the company that I work for are the people on the coalface who are the voice and face of your company. And when you want them to buy into something, go and ask them what they think, and they'll buy into what you want. The 3 most important words is could you please, which is courtesy. The 2 most important words is thank you, which is manners. And the 1 most important word is we, which is team. And the least most important word is I. Finally, you must always remember that nothing in this world ever comes easy. Achievement's all about commitment. You make sacrifices and you never look for excuses. Just once again, guys, thanks very much for giving me this brief opportunity to come along and talk to you tonight. You've been a wonderful audience, and thanks very much. Thank you.